Damien Delaney, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey Dan, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a funny week, this one, isn't it? Because you have uh, I suppose, I don't know, you probably call it the insanity of the transfer window on Monday. You have the emotion, the stress, the sort of the movement, financial aspects and angles. And you've got players in the Irish camp this week, like Adamida and Chidozie Ogbeni, permanent moves, loan moves, big moves in their life. And then you have to sort of put all that to the side and talk about your country, which isn't really about your money and your life situation. It's about something different. But it is a strange old time. Like what have you made of the last week? And before we move on to Ireland-Hungary, I mean, we can't have you on, I suppose, without referring to what could have been one of the most dramatic days ever, I guess, on Monday in
Mm.
the deadline day world.
Yeah, I mean it's stressful for players, regardless of what people think. If you're sitting at home on a Saturday about to fly into Dublin for an international meetup and World Cup qualifiers, and you're sitting by your phone, and your agent is calling you saying, "Look, we're close," and you're kind of asking your agent, "Do I fly to Dublin or am I driving to whatever club, or wherever I need to be?" And then obviously nothing happens, and then Sunday you have to fly into Dublin, and you're still looking at your phone all the while. You're meeting up with the national team, you're trying to put on a brave face, and your manager might have a couple of meetings on a Sunday night or Monday morning or whatever it might be, and you might not be there because you might have to jump straight back on a flight and get straight back to Dublin and get organised, and then all the aspects of life, which your wife is saying, right, so we're not living here anymore. Where are we living now? And you're like, oh, well, we're checking into this hotel this week, and then we'll rent an apartment. So it is a big upheaval for people, and then you've got your wife trying to find schools potentially for kids or whatever it may be. So it can be quite stressful for players, but also, once the window shuts, then on Monday night, then that's it. It's done. You can just get your head down and focus on the national team and put your club situation to the back of your mind and get into it. But I found it a really interesting transfer window, really, and I think it'll be defined by two players. Alexander Isak and Mark Guehi.
Hmm.
One player, behaved in a certain way and got exactly what he wanted, and another player was a consummate professional, and didn't. No, I think it's an oversimplification to say that nice guys always finish second. I think that's not right, because we don't know the parameters of the Mark Guehi deal, and obviously Crystal Palace are trying to find a replacement. What I would say is, as Crystal Palace are finding a replacement, they're trying to get a deal that works well for them financially. And in the back of their mind, they'll always be thinking, well, if this doesn't pan out, Mark's great. He'll come back and play for us. Whereas Newcastle are in a different situation. We need to shift this guy quickly because this place is turning toxic quickly. So it can be a difficult time. And as I said, I don't want to oversimplify Mark Guehi's situation. But what's interested me the most, or what I thought was the most eye catching, was a lot of the ex-pros that have been through the spin cycle of the league, understand how it works, understand the game, and the amount of pearl clutching that was going on by players, that couldn't seem to comprehend what Alexander Isak was doing. Um, but what I would say is, for every Alexander Isak situation where it's a player holding a club to ransom per se, I promise you, there's 50 that go in the other direction, where clubs are holding players to ransom. Now, I'm not advocating for this, or I'm not condoning this behaviour, but I promise you, loyalty is a two-way street. And sometimes a club outgrows a player, and they'll come to a player and they'll say, hey, listen, we're going in a different direction. It's not you, but we think it's best if you find a new club. And while you're doing that, you're training with the under-23s or the reserve team or alone, right? So the bit that caught me was the ex-players, because football clubs aren't these noble, like virtuous, altruistic institutions, that are out looking out for the best interests of their players. So I just found that really staggering, really, to be honest with you, with it. You take, for instance, say someone like Anthony. Well, he didn't ask to be bought for 80 million quid. Went to Man United. The move didn't work out, but he reports for pre-season in good faith, and the club say to him, "Hey, listen, thanks for everything, but we're going a different direction. You need to move on. And by the way, we're removing you from the first team environment." That's essentially what Alexander Isak has done, but in reverse.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that people will say, well, players sign contracts. Well, Anthony signed a 6-year deal. I'm just picking Anthony as an example. Any player that's played in professional football will have seen this a dozen times, like dozens of times, actually, to be honest here, where clubs are just moving on and they just cast the player to the side and they make him find a new club, or they try and freeze him out because they don't want to pay his wages, or trying something different. So, as I said, I'm not condoning what Alexander Isak did. And I suppose in the new age of publicity, it did get blown into quite a big story. But listen, he wanted to move. He felt he'd outgrown the club. Don't see a whole pile wrong with it. But I do question some of the ex-players and some of the statements that I've seen recently.
What type of comments are we talking about here, Damien?
Oh, well, listen, I understand Alan Shearer coming out, going to bat because it's his club, right? He's going to bat for Newcastle. But I've seen a lot of ex-players, I'm not going to name any names, and they're saying that what he's doing is reprehensible, it's terrible, it's ruining the game, and, player power is atrocious behaviour, and, players' loyalty is dead in football, and players don't get to carry on this way. And they might be right, but trust me, clubs do an awful lot of that too, and I could go through dozens of situations where I've felt players that were good professionals, worked hard, behaved in the correct manner, and the clubs then have just decided, well, we don't really want to pay your wages anymore, and, we want you out. So I just wanted to get that off my chest, to be honest with you.
No, I get you, because I did see, I think it might have been Craig Hope, one of the reports in the Mail, that he was in Singapore for the pre-season tour this is obviously a couple of weeks back when this started to develop, and he met one of the Newcastle players in the lobby who sort of casually said, yeah, he's gone, Isak, you know what I mean? Do you think players in the dressing room would have probably themselves, they can read the forecast with this stuff, and they know the game, and probably some of them knew, once that started, he was never staying.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like as soon as it started, there's no going back from that. Newcastle fans would never take him back. So then it comes for Newcastle. How do we get the most money for him? Right? What's the maximum? That's why I went right to deadline day, because Newcastle, and then it becomes a game of bluff essentially, because Liverpool are thinking, well, you can't keep him. There's no way, because the toxicity that's around Newcastle at the minute because of the situation. Eddie Howe, I promise you, just wants rid of him, just to move on and just get him out of the building, and Newcastle can get on with their season. Then Newcastle obviously trying to get replacements in. Now, I'm very aware here, Dan, that I might be coming across very cynical, heartless, and
that's football, isn't it? Is football not cynical and heartless?
Absolutely, it is. And listen, I understand there's probably fans at home that would disagree with what I'm saying right now, because they're like, oh no, it's a beautiful game, and players don't get to do that. But as I said at the start, once you've been through the spin cycle of the world, and I promise you, the Newcastle changing room, as soon as this happened, they just went, oh, well, he's gone then. Now as it drags on, players doing interviews, they don't want to get asked about it every 5 minutes. They don't want, reporters around the training ground. They don't want to be in Tesco doing their weekly shop and people are like, what's happening with Isak? Players are quite, I accept that, the kid wants to move on. Good luck to him. Let's get a good replacement. They have done that, Newcastle. They've got in that Walter Maida and Vissa. So they've got 2 replacements in, and the world will go back to normal now, and hopefully Isak plays for Liverpool and does really well. So I just want to say that I probably am cynical, to be honest with you, because I've just seen too much of it. My overriding point here is there was people who should have known better were saying things that, maybe they were pandering to a certain fan base, or maybe it becomes cool to jump on the bandwagon and crucify somebody. I'm not sure. But all these guys will have seen what I'm talking about a million times over, and it's just part of life.
Yeah, I think some of that stuff would be interesting if it was an English player as well, I find, but maybe that's my own cynicism. Tell me this, how different is the vibe in an international dressing room compared to a club one? Because you don't have, obviously you have competition, you've people want each other's places, but I'm guessing is it a completely different change of pace when you leave your club dressing room and walk into an international one? Yeah,
it's much more, you're all there for a reason because you want to represent your country. What you find is in football clubs, changing rooms become very, groupings. A lot of French lads will stay together, Dutch lads will stay together, and they have their own humour. And everybody gets on because you all share a common goal, right? But that was one of the changes I noticed over the span of my career, is you just had to learn to accept that, the French lads are going to hang out together. The French African boys are going to hang out together. The Dutch boys are going to hang out together. They're going to sit in the table. They're going to speak their language. They're going to have, don't mean any disrespect to us. It's just that they're comfortable. And I always thought to myself, well, if I was playing in, Africa or Far East or somewhere like that, and there was 3 other Irish lads, I'm going to hang around with the 3 Irish lads. So I was very careful not to judge people, for doing stuff like that. Whereas when you come into a national changing room, everybody's Irish, and you're catching up, and everyone's just exchanging news about their clubs, managers, training, what they're hoping for the season. And a lot of those lads will have played underage football together, right up through the age groups, and they've known each other for years, so they've built that rapport, that relationship, and it's much more relaxed and friendly, as opposed to the cut and thrust of an everyday Premier League or professional in England, really.
Yeah. So this week then we've got Ireland, we've got Got Hungary on Saturday and Armenia next Tuesday. And it is a strange one because this campaign is, when you were playing, the campaigns might take 12 to 14 months almost to play themselves out. This time it's 10 weeks. Like Troy Parrott is injured and now he might miss 2/3 of the campaign and it might not be a serious injury. So it's different. I don't know how you're feeling about this week, Damien. It's maybe off the back of what you're talking about there. I think Evan Ferguson is on the mind. He is someone who's gone out of that comfort zone to a dressing room in Roma where maybe he doesn't know too many people, yet he's looking good. He seems to have started the season well, and it does feel like a good campaign for Evan Ferguson could be a good campaign for Ireland. Maybe that's simplistic as well. I don't know how you're feeling generally about Evan and where things are with Ireland at the moment.
Well, positive, really. I'm really looking forward to this week. It can be a blessing that the games happen so fast because it is just bang, 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 and it's going to be over before we know it. But I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling confident about this week in general. I think we've got a half decent manager now who knows how to navigate a group like this, who knows how to set a team up that we won't be out of it after 2 games. I say that now, but having said that, it might not go well this week, and we could be. But I feel confident that going into the Hungary game, he will have us set up in a way that we definitely won't lose that game. Right, and that we will be in it going to. I think we play Hungary away in the last game. Is that what
we do? Yeah.
So I think we will still be in it going to that with a chance of getting second place. I won't be as cavalier, and we won't be 2 or 3-0 down. In the first 2 games, and then all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, where did that come from? And I think that's what's happened to us recently. But with regards to Evan Ferguson, I think it's a great thing to go out there. I saw his welcome he got when he arrived at the airport. I mean, that's got to be good for you, right? When you arrive at an airport and fans are cheering you into the city. Obviously, a whole new experience for him living in a capital city like Rome, settling in his life, and football seems to be going well for him. So he's going to come in with a bounce in his step. Whereas before, when he was on the bench at West Ham last year and couldn't get in the Brighton team and constantly kind of faced with those questions. So I think it's a good thing for him, and I think he's obviously going to have a huge part over the next 3 months for us. But I'm optimistic. I'm more optimistic going into this campaign than I have been for a long while. I'm not saying we're going to qualify. I'm not. But I think that we're going to have a good cut off it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that you look at the next week, though, and there could be an argument that Ireland need to get 6 points in the first 2 games. Now, I don't know how you would feel about that. And for me, the question is, I think people can see that there's been something quite solid about the team in recent games. But you kind of wonder, is Saturday one of those games where you need to find that balance and get the win? And how can Ireland get from A to B? Like, where is our confidence that Ireland can actually win these games as opposed to not losing them? And I know what you're saying, but is this week where Ireland need to find a way to win?
No, I definitely think Hungary at home would be an ideal way to nick a win, a 2-1 win. We're not going to go there and play Hungary off the park by any stretch of the imagination. So Hungary have had a difficult time of it lately. They've gone up to Nations League Group A, and they've had a couple of hide-ins off Netherlands and Germany, and all of a sudden you forgot how to win games of football, and then all of a sudden they go into a Nations League playoff against Turkey, and they get absolutely spanked off of Turkey. So all of a sudden now they might have forgotten how to win football games, right? So we're getting them at a good time. They're going to be a little bit nervous. They haven't won. I think they won 1 game. It was Bosnia. They beat
Azerbaijan away recently. That was in June, but they lost at home to Sweden. But speaking to people, there does seem to be a sense that they had success under Marco Rossi, and he tried to but there was maybe some criticism of the style of play, and they tried to evolve and be a little bit more open, and they've maybe lost a little bit of what they had, and now they're conceding a lot of goals. So they seem like a team that is in a little bit of not sure what they are again, and that's probably a good time to catch them then.
Absolutely, that's my point with this. Where I'm going is that it's a good time to get them at home, so you might catch them cold. Especially if we start well and we start at a high tempo. I listened to the manager's press conference yesterday. I was really impressed with it, talking about setting up in a way to limit Hungary. To really kind of make life difficult for them, because if you're on a bad run And it's all of a sudden a team like you meet a team like Ireland, they set up in a way that they make life difficult for you. And all of a sudden we get a goal and, we won it. All those feelings of, geez, we haven't won for a while, or Christ, we've, a couple of real heavy beatings recently and we just got relegated to Turkey. We probably shouldn't have. We're going back into Nations League. So they're all the feelings you want to bring back into the Hungarian team. So I think the manager's going to set up in a manner, and this is what I like about him the most, listening to him speak. Yes, he has his ideas how he wants to play football and how he sees the game. But he also understands the job at hand, which is to get us as close to qualification to a World Cup as we possibly can. And you were talking about confidence there earlier. We all wish that you could give somebody confidence, give someone a tablet, and they have it. You have to earn confidence, right? To have confidence. I'm going to steal a Tony Adams line here when he was talking about to have confidence. You have to do things that give you confidence, and I think we've done that recently in terms of, and people may ridicule this, but beating Finland home and away and beating Bulgaria home and away are all of a sudden instances where you're going, hold on a minute, we can win games of football, albeit against teams of that caliber. And the best thing about those wins, especially the Bulgaria one, was we went behind twice. How many times have we gone behind to someone and all of a sudden you're going, oh, well, that might be it. No, we don't manage to get back into the game. 1-0 down in both those games, came back and won them. That gives you confidence as a player. So if you do go 1-0 down to Hungary, you don't panic. You go, okay, that's fine. We've been 1-0 down before. And that's where that confidence from the manager is coming into the players, that mindset that they have, not to panic, not to get away from the game plan, to stay in the game. And all of a sudden you get one back and then you get a bit of momentum and you win a game 2-1. So they're the things that give you your confidence. So I think he's going to set the team up in a way. I don't know what formation he's going to play. He's been very, very flexible. Whether there is a flat 5 or it's something that morphs into a 3 at the back in possession, or it might be a straight 4-4-1-1. I don't know, but I do know that he's going to set a team up to get a result. And to answer your question right at the start of this, Dan, I don't think we need to beat Hungary.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't need to lose, and then we need to go to Armenia and win.
Yeah.
And I think 4 points from this window would be incredible for us. I think that puts us in real good stead. Portugal games come and go. The home game against Armenia. Now we're going to Budapest in November, I think it is.
Yeah, it's the last game.
Yeah, we're going there now, and all of a sudden, all bets are off. This is the gloves are taken off, and we're going for this, and we can nick that second spot. I would love to win on Saturday night, but I don't think the manager is going to approach the game in a manner, from a tactical point of view, that says we need to win this game, because then you could get beat. Because all those bad feelings that Hungary have had, if you go there and you take the game to them, they're going to get joy, and all of a sudden they think, oh no, we are a good team. We were just unlucky to be up in the Nations League Group A, and then they can give you a hiding,
Yeah. I mean, there's a focus on Szoboszlai naturally enough, because he scored an amazing goal on Sunday. And I must say, like, listening to some Hungarian journalists speak about it, what we might think is the scenario is the scenario. Like, they are very reliant on him. The chat there seems to be that as much as we see him play deeper for Liverpool now, and I mean at right back now, with Hungary, they need him going forward for real attacking responsibility. Like, what do you think the psychology for Ireland is when you go into a game when you know that a team is quite reliant on one opposition player? Does that simplify things, or can you take your eye off the ball? Like, who are you looking to take control of that situation?
So you got to look at the type of player that you're playing against. Szoboszlai is an incredible footballer, right? He's a very functional footballer. He performs a specific role in that Liverpool midfield. He makes late runs. I'm trying to think of someone else who you might be worried about. Let's say you were playing Georgia, Kvaratskhelia is playing.
Yeah.
That's a different type of player that you got to worry about, because that is a guy that will just float around the pitch and could do something out of nothing. Yes, Szoboszlai got that free kick on the weekend, but Szoboszlai's not going to pick the ball up, beat 4 players, and put someone in on goal, right? He's a very functional midfield player. He's high energy, high work rate, defensively solid, and obviously has a free kick in the locker as well, as we've seen. So, you can deal with players like that in terms of a strength in numbers type of way. You can always just make sure he's going to make late runs from midfield. That's his biggest strength. Running late from midfield, arriving in the box. So everybody's aware of that. Josh Cullen is aware of that. The 2 centre-backs are aware of that. So kind of strength in numbers can deal with that. So listen, you'd be worried about him. I remember playing against international teams, and you play against players, and it's a centre-back. And yes, the centre-back is incredible. It might be playing a really high level, Champions League level in Europe or whatever it may be. But, he's still a centre-back. He's still going to have so much of an influence on the game. It's the creative players, the Kvaratskhelia and these lads, you'd be worried about more. So I wouldn't be overly worried about Dominik Szoboszlai. Great player, yes. I have a feeling a lot of these words are going to come back to haunt me, Dan, next week.
It's that, it's that point of the campaign where everyone's level, so you can't go wrong. But no, it is the thing. Like, Hungary they're not a terrifying prospect. I think you can say that without fear of it coming back to haunt you. I think if Hungary looked terrifying on Saturday, I think it's because Ireland have failed in some respects. This is not a game that's it's unmanageable. It's not quite the feeling you had going into play France or Netherlands maybe in the last campaign, as much as Ireland got at them a little bit. So I don't know, in terms of decisions, right? Because as you say, like Heimir with his style, he seems to, it's a back four sometimes, it's a back five sometimes. It can depend, if Ireland have the ball or not. It seems like one of the big things he has to face into here is Robbie Brady isn't playing, who's been a consistent player at left back, and does his choice at left back, what does that say about his approach? Is it a Liam Scales playing at left back next to O'Shea and Collins with Matt Doherty at right back, or is it Matt Doherty at left back and Jacob Bryan at right back, or is it something like Ryan Manning at left back? I don't know how you see that picture in terms of what sort of balance you want to get.
I think he'll go. First of all, just on your initial point, I agree with you. Hungary are not terrifying. I mean, they're within our range, right? I mean, they might be the upper end of our range, but if we won on Saturday, no one would go, geez, what an incredible. It's not like when we beat Germany or we beat one of the top teams. So they're kind of at the top end of our range, but I think we're capable of. That's why I'm not overly terrified. In terms of shape-wise of what he would do, I think it'll probably be something that morphs five at the back, maybe Ryan Manning left wing back, and maybe Matt Doherty at right wing back, and it might be O'Brien, Collins, and O'Shea, right?
Yeah.
And it can kind of morph into a three with Matt Doherty kind of staying at home, and that means Darragh O'Shea might have to slide to left back, if you know what I mean. So in possession, it'll kind of morph into a four, and Ryan Manning gets released. But as soon as Hungary get really good possession, then it becomes a flat back five, and we're setting up shop here to not concede. So it's a flat back five with two sitters. But then when we win the ball back, Ryan Manning will probably have more license to go forward than Matt Doherty will, because then Darragh O'Shea may become the left back, and he'll for Collins O'Brien, something along those lines. I think that's what it'll be. I think out of possession, when Hungary have comfortable possession, he will just go rock solid and say, that's it, you guys have to break us down. And like you were saying there, I don't think Hungary have that type of player that can really open up a low block. So you want to frustrate them for long periods. Don't give them any real confidence. But then you need to pack a punch. The problem previously, or the problem with that system, is when you do drop into a back five, it's transitioning out of it to be able to land a punch of your own. So that when you win the ball back, your number 9 isn't isolated at the top end of the pitch, and you can't get out, and all of a sudden there's just wave after wave of attack, and then you end up getting bogged down anyway. So it'll have to morph into something more resembling a 4-4-2 in possession, to allow Ryan Manning to bomb forward at ease, so that if it does turn over, we still have a nice back four in place, and we're not getting caught cold with, we give the ball away and all of a sudden they've got loads of space to run into. So I think it'll be that. That's what he's tended towards to do recently, those kind of hybrid type formations, but they're not overly complicated, with the exception of the Nathan Collins role at Wembley, which is very, very complicated. I think it's been very, very, in possession, we're doing this, and then out of possession, we're doing this, but there's not a huge amount of movement. It's not a centre-back getting back in, or a full-back rotating into midfield. And then it's a long run back for him, like Kyle Walker used to have to do at the start at Man City. So it'll be very fluid. It'll be very easy to do. And I think what I like listening to him and watching his teams, I think he's very clear in what he wants from his players. Like, he tells his players every time, when the ball is here, you have to be here. When Hungary have more than 4 passes and have good possession, we're not pressing. We're not like counter pressing, trying to win the ball back, because then we get into a basketball game, and then that's what they'll probably thrive at the most, because they are a good side. So, if we can have a press, we have a press, but 3 passes. If we don't win it back in 3 passes, that's it. Straight lines, everybody back in, and we just let it, and we drop back to a certain point. We all get set, and then we wait for them to give the ball away. And when we give the ball away, especially like to Ryan Manning, don't worry. You've licensed to bomb forward carefree, because you know that Darragh O'Shea is going to fill your position at left back. So That's what I think it'll look like. But I'm curious myself to see what it does, because I do think this manager plays a lot of credence to tactics, shapes, in and out of possession.
Yeah, I think the other end of the pitch is the one you talk about, the press as well, and knowing when to press and what he actually does with Evan. Because I think listening to Heimir, certainly he's a big fan of Troy Parrott, and it looked like Troy Parrott had reached a place in his mind where it looked like he was always going to play, and that funnily enough, when Troy Parrott was younger, he was sometimes a number 10 and Evan might have been a number 9, and with Ireland it looked more like Evan as the number 10 and Troy as the number 9. Now Troy Parrott is out. Does Evan Ferguson lead the line as such, or is it Adam Ida? Does he feel he needs someone to sort of stretch the defence? And to me, like the tactical approach, I want to see what he does there, because he's used Finn Azaz as well. He's obviously a very clever player. I don't know what your feeling is around that, because there's obviously a 2-game plan here as well too. Who can play 2 games? Armenia is very warm there at the moment. I think he has to have that in the back of his mind. So I don't know, what would you be thinking about what you need for that approach on Saturday?
Whoever he does play up there, I think I would go legs. I would go with Ida. You have Chidozie Ogbene.
Chidozie, well. Yeah.
Now I'm not saying you play Chidozie up front, but you have Chidozie who, when you are counter-attacking, can chew up that ground and get up to support Evan. The biggest problem when you're counter-attacking is, everyone's back defending, helping out, and then in that transition, ball gets up to Evan, and he's got to keep hold for 4 or 5 seconds against 2 defenders. That's not going to happen. It's very, very difficult to do that. So you can't kind of hold for that. So what you need then is legs. People that can transition very, very quickly from a defensive position, chew up that ground and get up and support Evan and be an option for him. And I think Chidozie fills that role. So whether he plays from the right, and then you have a creative player, because another way to counterattack too is when you win the ball back, is can you get it into a Finn Azaz, somebody tight technical player who can take the ball in traffic, have 2-3 touches, and you're just looking to buy that 3-4 seconds for your players with legs to get up and get joined in. Me personally, I always like legs at the top end of the pitch, especially if you're going into a low block. I know a lot of managers now can kind of shy away from that, and they'd rather have like intricate players in that mid part of the pitch, so that when you do clear it, you keep the ball. But I think just having an outlet to keep the Hungarians honest, and I think Adam Ida gives you that. He scored a great goal there at the Aviva against Bulgaria as well. He's got his move, so he's going to be in a good place mentally. I would just go with him at the top end of the pitch and leave Evans, say, as a number 10, and then get lots of legs, get Chidozie on one wing, and you might go with another creative one on the other side. But definitely, the two sitters in midfield are just 2 sitters. So I would defend with 5 and attack with 5. So when you're going on the counter attack, you can let 5 go. I think previously we got that balance all wrong, where we were defending with 4 and 6 could go and join the counter attack, and that's why we always looked really, really susceptible on the turnover. So I think it would be just a kind of a back 4, 2 sitters, or even a back 3 and 2 sitters. There's your 5, and then everyone else can go and join in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you do pack a punch on the counter.
Yeah, no, I think Heimir is definitely a 5 and 5 man from some of the chat you would hear. I don't know. So what's your gut feeling then? Are you feeling good then? I sense an optimism off you. Yeah. I know we all can be susceptible to that at this stage, but I do sense you have a bit of belief.
Yes. And the reason I have that belief, I think, is the manager. I think this guy knows the game. It might not be pretty. It might not be eye-catching. We're not going to have 78% possession and factor in all these rotations. But this guy will play because, listen, some of the goals we scored in the last 2 games against Bulgaria, they're incredible goals, from breakaways and good passages of play, and we cut teams open. The Evan Ferguson goal at the Aviva, real good bits of play. So we are playing some really good football, but it's sensible and it's conservative. The balance is right, So I do think this guy has a good eye. I think he's got up to speed very, very quickly with us as a nation and our strengths. Culturally, the players have, and I think he's got as good a chance as anyone, to be honest with you, in terms of the way he's going to set his team up. So I'm confident that we should come out of this window intact and in with a shout.
I think we'll take that. God, we were just talking at the start of the show, Damien. 24 years since Ireland have been in the World Cup. It's sort of a scary. Where were you in 2002? Were you?
I was at Leicester.
Leicester. Do you remember
I was at
watching those
Leicester.
games at all?
No,
Or?
I do. Yeah. I remember coming home for the summer and watching them games. Yeah. I remember I was at Leicester and Muzzy Isak was in the Turkish squad, and they got to the semi-finals, got beat by Brazil, I think.
That was the one. Is that the one where Rivaldo went down with the
Yes,
comedy? He
yeah,
got hit by the ball. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I remember coming back pre-season, and then Muzzy came back, and he just brought in. I think he had Ronaldinho's shirt and another massive. Did Ronaldo play? Yeah, Ronaldo played in that World
Yeah,
Cup.
he did.
I think he had Ronaldinho and Ronaldo's shirt. So he also got two of them after the game. I remember looking at that in the changing room, thinking, "Wow, that's impressive." I think he came on in that game. So that's just a small kind of.
Yeah.
Of mine,
I mean, we do need it though, don't we? I mean, there's a lot going on around football at the moment in Ireland that isn't great. Like, you've Heimir speaking about the finances, and I know it's sometimes people want a bit of escapism, a distraction from that, but it is I mean, it's true. Like, the game does need this campaign, I think, to ignite.
And that's why, and I think, I think as long as we're in with a shout at the end, I think the Irish probably will always row in behind the national team. And as long as he sees a team that's organised, confident, and the structures are good, and we've got a chance of winning games, I think the public will row in behind it. The other stuff, the off the field financial stuff, I wouldn't be too up to date on that or what way that's going. I know the FAI are some voluntary redundancies, I think I read as well recently. So I wouldn't understand a whole pile of what's going on there. So you're right. The national team can give a lift to the whole association and give a lift to the whole country, really. So I hope he does have a good run at this over the next 3 months, and I hope we're going to Budapest in November with a chance. And I think that would be a successful campaign for me, because I'm careful not to think we're going to qualify for a World Cup, but I think that if we're going to Budapest and a win or a 3-0 win or something, to get us that second place, I think that would constitute a very successful campaign for Heimir and the lads.
Damien, thanks for joining us.
No worries.